Rob, Urban, Mark back here with you, and we are joined right now. This is going to be a good conversation. Michael McCann, Sportico legal expert, associate dean, professor of law, and sports director at the University of New Hampshire, also visiting professor of law at Harvard. He knows everything there is about sports law, right, Mike? Is that the basic way I can sum it up? Sports law.
Yeah, I don't know if I know everything, but that's a great description.
Okay. All right. Well, you're our sports law expert right now, for sure. But Urban has become kind of a junior expert in sports law. And the burgeoning lawyer, Urban Meyer, has got some questions for you, right, Coach?
All right, Mark, Mike, before we get started here, what's your record against Yale? You are what your record is. What's your record against Yale?
It's good. It's really good. It's winning.
Yeah.
All right. So I've recently been involved in some conversations, and I keep saying until we fix this enforcement arm of college sports called the NCAA, and I'm not throwing stones, but they've become a toothless organization because they don't have the power of subpoena. So the investigations take forever. It's time consuming. And then also, anytime they make a ruling, you see it all the time, they get litigated and they lose. And so there's a lot of things to get fixed. Mine number one on the hit parade to me is to fix this enforcement arm. You don't need new rules. The rules are in place right now. But if there's no enforcement, you see that around the country. If there's no enforcement, it's chaos. So the term that comes up, and I kind of looked it up, I've been asking, but to hear from you, and I think our viewers and listeners would love this, to get antitrust exemption. I hope I'm saying this right. What does that mean? And what's the process?
Yeah, and thank you for the question. You're right. The lack of enforcement is the big problem. That's the fundamental issue why there are problems in college sports, is that the NCAA hasn't, or is unwilling, or feels like it's going to be sued when it tries to enforce its existing rules. And as you said, antitrust is the big question. Antitrust in this context means colleges and conferences are competing businesses, right? They compete for faculty, staff, students, money, grants, marketing, all of that. When they get together and collude through the NCAA, which is a membership organization, and they prevent any one of them from paying athletes in some form or another, that's an antitrust problem, because they're competing. It's like when two gas stations call each other in the morning and coordinate prices. If Amazon and Target and Best Buy and all that, they got together to coordinate prices, that's the fundamental problem. So the challenge for the NCAA is that when there are rules saying you can't pay athletes for either NIL or for their labor, it presents an antitrust issue, or transferring, right? All of these rules have come up in court. And the big problem for the NCAA was that in 2021, the U.S. Supreme Court, in a case that had nothing to do about NIL, nothing to do about athletes playing sports, the Alston case was about colleges getting together to limit how much they can pay athletes for education. And once the NCAA lost that case, the court said, you don't get deferential review anymore. So we've seen an avalanche of litigation since then. So to your question about an exemption, what the NCAA wants is an exemption from antitrust laws, for a statute to say it's not subject to antitrust law. So colleges could collude without being sued. But it's problematic. And we see there's a lot of political pushback. It looks like it's favoritism. Why don't other businesses get that? What are some of the consequences? Should an entity that's being sued a lot get a break from the law that governs it? There are big questions about that.
Right. Okay. So what other professional sports leagues have antitrust laws, and could that work in college sports?
So the other leagues, NFL, NBA, all of the major pro leagues are governed by antitrust law. But because they collectively bargain their rules with the athletes who are unionized employees, there's a labor exemption. And the labor exemption is called the non-statutory labor exemption. I won't go into it, but very basically, a bunch of Supreme Court cases say when management and labor get together and agree on rules relating to hours, wages, and other workplace conditions, we exempt them from antitrust. That's the reward for management. If you agree to work with the union, you get a break from antitrust law. So now baseball has its own historical antitrust exemption for certain things, but that's not at issue here. So colleges could get that if the athletes were recognized as employees and unionized, and then bargain with them.
Wow. Okay, let's go here now. So college football, let's focus there for a minute. Is that even when I hear these conversations, in your opinion, is it even a possibility? And if it is, what's the process to get antitrust exemption?
So through the labor route, it would be, let's say power conferences agreed that the football players are employees. So that's step one. That doesn't solve the issue because at private schools, it's governed by federal law, the National Labor Relations Act. But then in some public universities, they're governed by state laws. And in some states, it's very difficult, if not impossible, under their laws for public university employees to unionize. So there are some states that are not as friendly to labor as others, basically. So one argument, and whether this works is an open-ended question, but would be the conferences would be the entity that bargains with the players' union. The conferences are private, so they're governed by federal law. They would represent, Southeastern Conference negotiates a CBA on behalf of SEC schools with the football players. And whatever they agree to, that would be exempt from antitrust law. So that would deal with NIL. That would deal with the transfer portal. If you go commit to Alabama, you got to stay there. I mean, that could be a rule. It's like free agency, right? Restrictions on free agency. They could also have eligibility rules. So we don't see former players from pro leagues trying to re-enter or players not leaving. All of those could be collectively bargained and antitrust law goes off the board.
Process to go there. Is it congressional?
No, it wouldn't require Congress. It would take the individual member schools. So let's take Southeastern Conference. Let's say the Southeastern Conference schools agree that the football players are employees and they recognize them. Then those players would have to agree to join a union. Now, if they don't agree to join a union, then this doesn't work. So there are hurdles to it. But let's just play it out. Let's say the players then say, okay, we'll agree to a union, and the union bargains with the Southeastern Conference. We negotiate a CBA. So that would work without Congress getting involved. It avoids political stuff. Now, again, it doesn't work if the players don't go along with it. Maybe some players don't want to be in a union. You never know. But that would, to me, seem like the way there.
And in that case, Mike, and we're talking about the SEC just as an example right now, would they then be the ones that were in charge of enforcing all of this?
Yeah, presumably. Okay. That's right. So the SEC,
commissioner of the SEC?
Commissioner of the SEC, it would be like a pro league. It would be like a league operation.
So then where is the NCAA in that conversation then if this is what happens?
Non-existent?
Well, it could still exist. It could still have a contractual relationship with the SEC. I mean, for instance, for basketball, right? We know the NCAA does really well with the basketball tournament. It generates a lot of revenue. Maybe that would be the contractual relationship, but football would be only with the SEC in that example.
In that example. So is it possible, do you see college athletes across the country and in all sports being able to unionize? Is that like something even realistic at all?
It would only be realistic if the conference was the entity.
Gotcha.
It has to go through because the individual schools, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, there are all these state laws that would make it hard for public university athletes to be in a union.
And then would it be legally acceptable if there was college football had their own parameters? Because that's what we're talking about right now, but we forget about the college basketballs and the volleyballs and the swimming and the soccers and the Olympic sports out there. Would that then have to be a whole another carve out, if you will?
Yeah, so there would be Title IX issues. There's no question about it, right? Because everything I'm describing benefits football players, not obviously men, not women athletes. It wouldn't preclude colleges recognizing other athletes at a school from being employees, but in the absence of that would be a hurdle, or some type of statute that says Title IX doesn't apply in the context of a conference as the bargaining unit.
All right, Mike, you're on the hot seat, man. You're it. Fix it. How do you do it?
Well, I think what I just described, it has a lot of hurdles, but it seems more likely to me to work than honestly Congress. Look, Congress, there has been a Republican president and a Republican Congress. There has been a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress over the last 6 years, and nothing passes. Like they have press conferences and they got a lot of attention, but I'm very skeptical. This isn't a party thing either. Both parties, they haven't advanced legislation on college sports. Maybe they finally do that. I don't know, but it seems hard. So let's say that's a tough route. The other route is let's just keep litigating. Every day there are new lawsuits, either players that don't want to leave school, or now players that want to come back after being pro athletes. They're not going anywhere. Those lawsuits are going to keep. And here's the thing: we're going to see different decisions in different jurisdictions. So Alabama court's going to say one thing, Mississippi another, Florida another, New Hampshire another. So you're going to have conflicting rulings, or maybe the Supreme Court takes this on at some point and says, here, we're going to decide the rules once and for all. But it's going to, they don't really take a lot of sports cases. They have other priorities, as we know. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with a world of more litigation, more proposals in Congress that don't seem to have traction, and the NCAA playing defense. Now, Urban, you said at the beginning, the NCAA isn't power. It sort of seems like it has its hands tied. Well, one thing it could do, it could just be active. It could be aggressive. It could go on offense. It's like they're playing the prevent defense right now. And they're playing the prevent defense because they're worried about that Supreme Court decision in 2021. But I would say that decision wasn't even about athletes playing sports. Wasn't about NIL. It was about education-related expenses. We don't know what that court would have decided if the case had involved paying athletes to play sports. Could have been totally different.
Cool. All right, Mike, real quick, gut check. Percentage that NCAA college athletics can sort themselves out within the next, let's say, 18 months?
Really low. Almost zero.
Giving them a year and a half, and you're saying almost zero.
Zero.
We're just going to see more lawsuits.
Yes.
And here's the thing. If you're a lawyer, this is great. So there, keep in mind.
It's a booming business.
It's a booming business. So there's a lot of incentive to
Mike McCann eating good.
Yeah, I mean, why resolve it if you're right?
Man, that hurts. That hurts. Mike McCann, Sportico legal expert. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate
Mike,
the
you were
intel.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for having
hope
me.
we can find some solutions out there. That's all we're trying to get is make college athletics better.